Now, just days after the European leaders reached a compromise to impose a partial oil embargo on Russia after a long-delayed package of sanctions that was blocked by Hungary, the Central European nation has yet again stalled the approval of the sixth tranche of EU sanctions on Russia. This time, it has voiced its opposition against the blacklisting of a Russian patriarch. This comes after the ambassadors from the 27-nation bloc met on Wednesday to hammer out the legal details of the move and the rest of the package of sanctions. It was during this meeting that the European leaders highlighted on how Hungary was refusing to give the green signal to the sanctions because it rejected putting the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill, on the assets freeze and the visa ban blacklist. Now, Kirill is a fervent supporter of Russian President Vladimir Putin and has constantly backed his military campaign in Ukraine, due to which most EU governments have vehemently supported adding his name to the sanctions list. Now, the other proposed additions to the blacklist include Putin's alleged girlfriend and former gymnast Elena Kabaeva. And to iron out the differences, the EU officials have said that they are ready to hold a fresh round of talks later on Wednesday. And what is imperative to note here is that the weeks-long hold-up of the sixth set of sanctions has rocked EU's unity over Kremlin's war in Ukraine. And to give us more insights in terms of what exactly are Hungary's objections to the sixth round of sanctions and what is the way forward, we're joined in by our correspondent Rosie Burchard, who's joining us live from Brussels. Now, Rosie, just a couple of days back, we actually, saw that there was some consensus within the European Union to impose the sixth set of sanctions. But now, Hungary has raised an interesting objection for the sanctions to go ahead. Is there a way in which the EU would like to resolve this?
The EU ambassadors are certainly trying their best to resolve this as soon as possible. Now, this original political deal for this partial oil embargo and this sixth package of sanctions took about a month to negotiate and 8 hours of talks in addition to that among EU leaders here in Brussels on Monday. But now, just a couple of days later, the sign-off on those sanctions has now already hit a technical snag. And as you quite rightly pointed out, this is down to Hungary raising objections. Now, in many ways, this shouldn't come as a surprise because Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban had previously said he was opposed to sanctioning religious figures. So the head of the Russian Orthodox Church on this proposed sanctions list is something Budapest had previously rejected to. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says this is an issue of religious freedom. However, he was put on this list, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, because he is seen by other EU leaders as being one of Vladimir Putin's chief propagandists. Now, moving forward, EU ambassadors are set to meet in Luxembourg this afternoon at around 3 p.m. local time to try and hash out these final details. If Hungary persists with its opposition, it could be that the head of the Russian Orthodox Church is dropped from this sanctions package and the rest of the sanctions are signed off so they can come into effect. And of course, as you rightly mentioned, this really is an issue of EU credibility and EU unity, which leaders said after this deal was struck a couple of days ago had been maintained. Now it looks to be in question again.
Absolutely, indeed, because this of course remains a bit of a sticky detail which Hungary seems to be insisting on. Now, the Ukrainians are not very happy in the manner these negotiations have just dragged on and on for almost about a month. We heard the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky say that not the sixth round but the seventh round of sanctions should have been in place on Russia. Can we expect the EU to now quicken these negotiations that it has been carrying out for so long in imposing the sixth round of sanctions?
The negotiations will quicken, they will be sped up, they're happening this afternoon. We'll wait and see whether or not EU ambassadors manage to strike a deal on this. But when it comes to a seventh package of sanctions, something Ukraine is calling for, that doesn't seem to be on the horizon anytime soon. Just look how difficult and time-consuming it was to try and get this sixth package over the line. What Ukraine would like to see, beyond this partial oil embargo, beyond sanctioning more individuals, is a full embargo also on Russian gas. Now, that is a very tricky thing for EU leaders to agree on because the bloc is historically dependent on Russia for its gas supplies, and that's also harder for the bloc to replace than Russian oil. So a big shift here in Brussels, an attempt to try and wean the European Union off its energy dependence on Russia, but something that seems to be very tricky to happen overnight. I spoke recently to Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas. She said she would like to see a gas embargo, but she admitted she thinks that's something that's unlikely to happen. It seems now that with the fallout of these sanctions being felt in the European Union and further afield, there's less appetite to move forward with tougher sanctions still. But of course, Ukraine accusing EU countries which continue to buy Russian oil and gas of essentially helping Vladimir Putin to fund his war machine.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Rosie Burchett, for joining us and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.